detecting something on my tricorder. It looks like a Star Trek convention. Let's go check it out.
So hey all, I am back from the 56-year mission, also known as Star Trek Las Vegas. It was a really good trip. I had a lot of fun, and I managed to get most everything I was hoping to get there. And let's see, pre-con prep for this convention starts usually for me sometime around January. I'll start purchasing the tickets. We'll start getting the photo ops and autograph tickets, and it basically boils down to a stack about that thick by the time we're finished. And most for me anyway, the con prep has to start that early just so that I can be sure I have everything, that I can afford everything, because it helps to be able to purchase some of the photo ops and the autographs beforehand, because this way you can sort of I guess amortize the cost as you go. And a lot of it really is just, I guess, making sure that I have everything that we need, that all the reservations are taken care of ahead of time. We usually do a nice dinner at a fairly high-end restaurant, and a lot of it really is just, I guess, making sure all the reservations, all the tickets are purchased, because although they usually don't sell out of most things, some things do, particularly once you get to the con itself. But I always like to make sure that all of that's taken care of before we leave. Let's see. As we arrived on Tuesday, traditionally the con would start on Tuesday night, with Tuesday night being a preview night, and it would move into the actual convention on Wednesday. Now this year, and apparently next year, they have shortened the convention by a day, so the preview night actually was on Wednesday this year, but I still insisted it was a good idea to get there on the Tuesday. And I was kind of, I guess, a little bit paranoid that they would still open it on the Tuesday, because we discovered quite by accident the first time we came to the convention that they open up on Tuesday, and that has been the case, I guess, for a long time. But in this particular instance, I just kind of wanted to keep the same schedule, and it really turned out to work in our favor, because when we arrived on the Tuesday, we were able to take a day just to kind of get settled. And on Wednesday morning, I spent the time planning the con schedule, because, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but they don't actually release the con schedule until the couple of days before the convention. So and the reason why that is because there are so many actors and so many balls that they need to get in the air and coordinate, that most of the time they don't know exactly what the final schedule is going to be until a few days before the convention, when everybody's locked in and we know who's going to be there. Now, as a result of that, Wednesday was kind of nice and leisurely, and I really appreciate having the extra day, so I'm going to pitch for doing that again next year as well. Just so that we can have plenty of time to get in there, get settled, and just kind of have a nice leisurely time before the con starts. And I kind of really think that warm-up time and wind-down time really matters for conventions, particularly for me these days, just because I like having the time to be able to settle into the routine again, time to get ready for the con and all that stuff, because it just works out better for me these days. I just kind of like the option. And let's see, we arrived on Tuesday, and when we had a little bit, I guess, of an adventure when we first arrived, because my razor unfortunately broke. I had a razor I'd purchased, and it, I stuck it in the bag thinking it would be fine. Apparently, while it was shifted around, the head of the razor broke, and we ended up having to find a replacement, because as I don't like having any facial hair, especially after I transitioned. So it really bothers me, and I particularly wanted to make sure that I didn't have any in these photos that we were going to be treasuring for many years to come. So here I was on the Tuesday night trying to figure out exactly where I'm going to find a razor. Well, it so happened that its current location, or at least its location this year, happened to have a CVS right outside. So it was relatively easy to replace, and I ended up getting a razor that actually worked better for me than the original one that I brought with me. So I'm in the long run, I'm kind of considering it, I guess, a little bit of a happy accident, but I still could have done without the heart attack that resulted from that whole escapade. But at the very least, I got what I needed, and it ended up turning out to be a better razor. So, in the long run, it worked out. But the razor that Strag had gotten me a few years ago worked really well. It was I guess a small unit that seemed to work pretty well, but it died, so I needed to replace it. And the one I replaced it with, I was honestly never really very happy with. It seemed like it got an okay shave, but I could never figure out how to get a really close shave. And particularly when I went to get a razor, I found a model that was pretty similar to one I had used a long time ago, and I just decided that this is the one that's going to do the job, and it turned out to be to work really well. So I'm definitely glad that it worked out the way that it did. But um, let's see. Okay, so as far as Wednesday morning, I woke up at 8 o'clock, which was my planned time to get up every day at this particular convention, and I started mapping out our schedule. This included several pages of scratch notes as well as a number of lists, because, I mean, well, for the most part, when I go to most other conventions, I kind of just, I don't really need to do that much planning. Star Trek Las Vegas is a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that I want to make sure that I know exactly that we're where we need to be when we need to be there. And Strag can tell you, how much work I put into this and how much effort I put into making sure that everything goes smoothly so that we get what we want and we don't end up having any disappointment. And that basically, what that looks like is pretty much like this. This is what the average day's schedule will look like. This is, I guess, all of my notes on what we were doing on each individual day. And I go through this for every day of the convention just so that we have an idea of exactly where we're going to be and what we're going to be doing. And it's really the only way to stay organized at a convention like this, especially the way that I do things, because I usually like to get a large amount of photos and autographs, particularly because, for one reason, I would like to make sure that I get at least one with every principal Star Trek actor, because that's one of my life goals right now. It says I want to get at least one photo and hopefully an autograph or two from every individual principal Star Trek actor that I can. And unfortunately, a few of them that is no longer an option, but I would still like to basically complete as many as possible with the time that I have. And that being said, it's been a high priority of mine to get the Next Generation cast, the Deep Space Nine cast. There's some actors that don't really do a lot of conventions these days, and I kind of hope that they find it in themselves to decide to come to a few of these, because it would really matter to me, and I think it would matter to a lot of the fans. And I'm just I'm crossing my fingers that we get a chance to do it with some of those actors, which are seen less frequently at cons than some of the others. But as far as the con hotel, this year it was held at Bally's, which was it normally is held at the Rio All Suites, and I think the reason why it was held at Bally's this year was because they had sold Caesars has sold the Rio to Hyatt, I think, and I know they were going to do some renovations to bring it more in line with their other Hyatt properties. Now, I don't really know what that means, whether or not they're going to be altering con space, whether they're going to be altering the rooms or anything else, or a combination thereof. And I suspect that the convention just didn't want to take the chance that they would be making renovations while the convention was ongoing, because they may not have known exactly when they were going to be doing work on anything, or it may have been that they're working on their rooms now and they might have knocked a significant block of them out of availability because of that. Um, but I did know that the Rio was operating and open and accepting guests at the time, because we went there on Sunday night for our Korean barbecue, which is usually what we do our last night of the convention. It's kind of a little bit of one of our traditions. And it felt like coming home. It's like I really am looking forward to it. They have assured us that it will be in the Rio next year, which pleases me a great deal because I really like that building. and I really want to go back there next year, and I'm looking forward to it a lot. But as far as Bally's itself, I can say a couple of things about the hotel. It's like, for one thing, it was acceptable but not exceptional, is kind of the way I've been referring to it. And one thing I kind of want to point out is that it had these weird square-shaped shower heads, which was just bizarre. But I mean, this is the room. Um, it's pretty much a standard hotel room, nothing really spectacular. But I mean, it served our needs. The Rio definitely has far superior facilities, particularly in the guest rooms. And I mean, it was pretty standard hotel room, so there's really not too much to say about that. But I can say that as far as the con space, that the Rio is far superior. Bally's was adequate. I'll say that again. I'll probably say that a lot during the course of this video. But in the case of Bally's, the hallways were a little narrower, and it may not seem like a lot, but when you're dealing with the volume of people and scooters and everything else that needs to move down those hallways, those extra feet really do make a difference. And while everybody was courteous of each other, while we all made space for everybody, it certainly was crowded at times, particularly in cases when large events would let out of the ballroom, and you would have a large crowd of people heading in the opposite direction. It's kind of like swimming upstream. But I mean, the layout is just, I guess, not super conducive to a convention of that size, because in Bally's, the big ballroom is at the end of the hall, and there's really only one hall. With the Rio, it's kind of right there off to the side when you come in, so it's really much better suited, I guess, for large crowds of people, because they don't all flow into this little narrow area. Instead, they have that big rotunda that they can come out into. And they had the dealer's room. In order to get to the dealer's room, you had to go through the photo queuing area, which had the ticket booth where you bought the photo tickets on one side, and the tables where you would pick up your finished photos on the other. And they had like a queue area of a couple of different lines that they would use to queue up the people waiting for photo ops. And particularly, I mean, for the most part, it worked pretty well. But some of the high volume ones, particularly one or two of them, filled the room up to the point where it was almost unwieldy. And now I give huge credit to the photo op team for getting everybody through and for making sure that this all worked like clockwork, because it really did work very well. But a couple of times it was just a little awkward when there were a large number of people, and particularly with the dealer's room through fare being right in that area, it was also somewhat tricky to keep track of what lines were where. But for the most part, it was all right. I thought the vendor's room was probably about the same size as the one we have at the Rio. However, I don't know, it seemed like some of the autograph lines that they had there were longer than they seemed like they get at the Rio, and maybe that's just my perception. Or maybe it's a side effect of having extra conde, I don't know. But in any event, for the most part, it worked out pretty well. I was able to time most of the periods I would be standing online at points where I actually had time to stand online. That's kind of what all this is about. But the they arranged the con pretty well. It's like they've been doing this for a long time. They only have one photo area, so you never have to worry about having a conflict with two photo ops occurring at the same time, which I think is smart. But the one thing that I thought was really a negative for this particular location was that several of the facilities, which includes Jimmy's Place, which formerly was Quark's Bar, it's a place to get sandwiches and hot meals and a couple of basic amenities, and the DeForest Kelley Theater and the Roddenberry Museum were all on the 26th floor. Now, in order to get here, you had to take an elevator. It was away from most of the major con events, and it was really largely abandoned for most of the weekend. It was, I mean, for places that are supposed to kind of be like social hubs and hangouts, I mean, it was the only place that they had available. But the result, I think, was really that a lot of people just either didn't use them or didn't even know they were there, because they're kind of just off in this little space that's separate from the rest of the convention space. Now in the Rio, they're all kind of, everything is central. Everything is all in the same location, so it's a lot easier to duck into Jimmy's place for some food or to see the secondary panels. And I think that uh, although it served our needs, that it was not quite as effective or efficient as the Rio is at doing this. And I mean, Bally's was pretty good. It's like the main lobby area had all of the services on one side and all of the gambling areas on the right hand side. And, it was mostly pretty easy to maneuver, fairly straightforward. We had a room in the North Tower, which was right by the convention space, so it was pretty convenient to come out of your room just hanging left and your right at the con. But all in all, I miss the Rio. I prefer the Rio, and I'm looking forward to going back there in future conventions. Um, let's see, as was tradition, Thursday night we went to a fairly nice and expensive restaurant. This year we chose Amalfi. The first time we had gone to Hell's Kitchen. The second year we had gone to Giada's restaurant at the Cromwell. And this time we went to Bobby Flay's restaurant in Caesar's Palace. And it was inspired by flavors that he had experienced while on the Amalfi coast. And, we hadn't tried a Bobby Flay restaurant, so I thought it was time to give this one a shot. And it was really good. I had a lemon spaghetti, which was kind of like what I had last year at Giada's restaurant, except, as far as comparison between the two, Giada definitely had better presentation. Hers was a beautiful dish. Bobby's was very good. I think Giada had some large shrimp with it, and Bobby Flay had some crab instead, and it was all, so super delicious. The restaurant was a lovely atmosphere. It was a nice eating establishment. I really liked it, and it was a great experience. So let's see. I can also say that I had I don't usually do dessert, but I had this pistachio sundae that I saw on the menu, and I just had to order it. It was so good, and it was absolutely delicious. A fantastic experience. I would highly recommend it to anyone that happens to go to Vegas. Um, let's see. I guess the one negative that I have to report was that the convention, which usually provides 8x10s of all the actors and their Star Trek characters, did not have any images from Melissa Navia. Now, I know she was the last minute guest, but they managed to get them for several of the other last minute guests, but unfortunately she didn't have any 8x10s. And since she didn't have a table in the vendor's room, she didn't have any with her. So unfortunately, I was not able to get her autograph because I didn't want her to sign just some random object, and I didn't have anything or to have time to secure anything that would have been satisfactory to me. So I'm going to try and see if I can get a refund for those. If not, I'm okay with being out that money, but still, it's just unfortunately the only disappointment I had this year. But considering everything else that we attempted to accomplish was achieved, it really isn't too. It really isn't, in the grand scheme of things, the worst possible thing that could happen. So, I mean, but still, I felt need to note that there. Um, I would like to also, in particular, highlight Doug Jones for being an absolutely wonderful, sweet individual who was just a pleasure to get to meet. And he had he had canceled last year, and fortunately, he was here this year, and it was really, I guess, one of those things that worked out better in the long run, because we got to talk to him, and he hugged us. He was just super sweet. I mean, I can't say enough good things about the man. He was just spectacular. He was great with people. He was just a wonderful individual, and I have to say that meeting Doug Jones and getting to interact with him was the absolute highlight of the weekend. So thank you so much, Doug, for being a fantastic actor and a fantastic representative of both Star Trek and your craft and of yourself as a person. So it was absolutely spectacular, and I am so grateful for the opportunity, so thank you. We also had an opportunity to meet Moody Ferret, whom I had discovered on Twitter was heading to the convention for a couple of days. So when we were going to dinner one night, we ran into her, and we had a little conversation. And it was kind of funny how closely her story mirrored my own, because we've both been Star Trek fans for a long time, but neither one of us had actually gone to a Star Trek convention for a long time. It's like, she had went, I think for the first time, she said in 2019. My first was 2018. But for whatever reason, until recently, we hadn't gone to Star Trek conventions, and we're both huge Trek fans. So, I mean, it's one of those things that, I'm glad to have had the opportunity to rectify. Well, most of the actors I want to meet are still actively doing conventions, or still working, and that I'm seeing the names, and it really was a wonderful opportunity to get to meet with somebody at a con, because usually we don't see anybody we know at these conventions. I know there's a lot of furry Star Trek fans, but I've been trying to get a couple of our friends to go, particularly uh, Sienna and Scully Raptor and Spectre Fox. But one thing or another has kind of kept that from happening. COVID, financial issues, job switching, that sort of thing. But I'm hoping that I can make that happen one of these years, because I really think they would enjoy the experience, and I would like to see people I know there. But it was nice to meet Moody Ferret and her partner, and we got a chance to talk to them a couple of times. We went to dinner with them on Saturday, I believe it was, and had a nice meal. We all kind of talked about Star Trek, and it was fun. Um, let's see. As far as Star Trek goodies, I can point. Most of what I came back with was photos and autographs. I will show you a little bit of those right now. It's like these are some of the autographs that we collected, or I collected, I should say. Ben isn't really into autograph collecting, but it's kind of become a little bit of an obsession of mine in recent years to get every Star Trek actor's photo and autograph at least once, every principal Star Trek actor. And there are some guest stars I would particularly like to get as well. But as far as physical goodies, I got this little phaser rifle, which I guess is over here now. Little phaser rifle that is a replica of the Type 3 phaser rifle from Next Gen. And, I really think it's cool. It's one of my favorite sci-fi weapons. And I also got a plaque featuring Patrick Stewart, which is also right here. And this is one of the things I got from the fans at the table. It's the Confederation badge from Season 2 of Star Trek Picard. I also managed to get a couple of the Women of Star Trek pins, and at some point I would like to get some pins, I guess, from my office as well, and magnets, since I realized my file cabinet is magnetic, so I stuck one of the magnets on that I got from Vegas originally, I guess just as a souvenir, on my file cabinet. So I'm personalizing my office a little bit as I go. I also added the Nicole DeBoer and Garrett Wang photos to my office. And let's see, I guess that's about it for con goodies. On the 26th floor, they had a memorial tribute to Nichelle Nichols, Lieutenant Uhura, which I thought was very beautiful, very tasteful, very well done. I kind of think it should have been in a more prominent area of the convention. But, they had limited space in the hallways to place things, and I understand that, but still, I think she should have been there. More so than the Star Trek II material that they had there in the main con space. But as far as Star Trek Las Vegas, we will be going back next year. They have announced that it will be back at the Rio, which pleases me, and that several actors have already committed to being there, that the Next Generation cast has promised to be there. I believe we're coming up on a Next Generation anniversary, maybe 30 years, maybe 25. Let's see, what is it? Next Generation premiered in like 86, 87, so I don't know. But in any case, I'm really hoping that they are there, because I would like to get a picture with LeVar and with Michael, and redo Brent and Marina, and just for my own sake, I might like to get a solo picture with Frakes and Gates, just because The Next Generation was my first Star Trek. It was the first one my parents introduced me to. It's near and dear to my heart, and there's a lot of episodes that I really enjoy. So, it would mean a lot to me to be able to get that with them. Let's see. As far as other things for next year, it's like I'd like to see once again if I can try and get Jeff or Scully to come with us, and hopefully we will have some company in the room next year. But other than that, we will be back at the 57-year mission, and I will catch you all later.
If you like werewolves, check out my book Blue Moon, available in paperback and ebook on Amazon. Thanks for watching.
If you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. Catch you later.